got the Declaration wrong. Here's a story about U.S. history you might not know. Two founding fathers with two very different ideas on a single line in the Declaration of Independence. And you're going to see by the end of this video how this all relates to theology. Let's meet our founding fathers.
In the red corner, the man with a lightning jab and a constitution as sturdy as his bifocals. Benjamin Fisticuffs Franklin. In the blue corner, we have the Declaration of Fisticipation himself, the maestro of Monticello, Thomas Thunderquill Jefferson.
From the capital city of the United States of America, Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Franklin versus Jefferson, 1776. Who got the Declaration of Independence right? 1876. Thomas Jefferson is in the middle of the thing that will define his legacy. He is drafting the Declaration of Independence, and in the midst of feverishly working on it, he writes to Ben Franklin, asking Franklin to add his thoughts and edits to the Declaration for a meeting that'll hopefully take place the next day. Jefferson writes to Franklin and he says, "The enclosed paper has been read with some small alterations approved by the committee. Will Dr. Franklin be so good as to peruse it and suggest such alterations as his more enlarged view of the subject will dictate? I propose laying it again before the committee tomorrow morning." Now, multiple edits are made from Franklin, but there's one edit that has massive theological significance.
One of these magnificent fighters will be standing at the end of this round.
Snaps out a stiff jab, and another.
Jefferson's original work says this: "We hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable." Now, this is fascinating that Jefferson would write this line. Like some of the other founding fathers, the third president was considered a deist. A deist believes in a higher power, but not a personal God. A deist doesn't believe that God is knowable. They reject revelation and don't subscribe to the claims that a God can listen to their prayers. Jefferson valued reason over revelation. He rejected many of the foundational Christian doctrines, including the virgin birth, original sin, and the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus. Really, by all accounts, he rejected orthodoxy. In fact, as president, Jefferson took a razor to his Bible and he cut out the portions of the Gospels that show miracles, but he kept the ethical teachings. And this led to the work, The Philosophy of Jesus of Nazareth, affirming to Jefferson that Jesus was not divine, rather he was primarily concerned with morality and ethical conduct. In fact, in the future, he would write The Life and Morals of Jesus, or what we commonly call today, the Jefferson Bible. And despite embracing deist ideology, he was still a religious man. He shared with a close friend. He said, "I'm a real Christian," that is to say, a disciple of the doctrines of Jesus. And so for Jefferson, what lay at the center of the Christian faith to him was the moral message of Jesus, which is why as he's drafting the Declaration, he frames the equality of men and the rights they have in religion, that they're undeniable because they come from above. They're sacred truths because Jefferson recognizes they can only exist if they originate with the Creator. And this leads to Franklin's response. Franklin takes his pen and he crosses out those three words, sacred and undeniable, and he replaces it with one word, self-evident. Jefferson chose to ground his view in theology. Franklin chose to ground his view in reason. Now, Franklin was raised in a house of devout Puritans in Boston. In fact, his family had thought of sending Ben to Harvard to train as a pastor. Harvard was named after a pastor, John Harvard, and while never technically affiliated with any denomination, it was founded to ultimately train pastors. However, Franklin was a ferocious reader and was skeptical about his parents' Calvinist traditions and convictions. And so his father, concerned for his son's faith, he gave Ben some anti-deist books to read. Unfortunately, they had the opposite effect of what his father was trying to accomplish with his son. Franklin, he found the argument for deism to be stronger than the argument for Christianity. So he wrote, in short, I soon became a thorough deist. However, Franklin was at best an inconsistent deist. Thomas Kidd notes, his speeches and his letters, they're full of allusions to the Bible. As an older statesman, he was the one who proposed in 1787 that the Constitutional Convention should open its meeting with prayer. He published many of the books of the famed preacher George Whitefield, arguably the most important figure of the Great Awakening. And while not seeing eye to eye, Franklin admired the preacher. And this may be the crux of why Franklin thought these truths to be self-evident. While admittedly he was a deist, he presented through his life a deep sympathy to the Christian faith and its sentiments. He believed that these self-evident truths didn't depend on Christian tradition. Rather, they could be grasped logically by anyone who thinks about them truly. But does his proposal hold up? Are these truths self-evident? The answer plainly is no. Andrew Wilson notes there are plenty of cultures in which it's not even remotely self-evident to people that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights. Most human beings in 1776 did not believe this. That's the whole reason the Declaration of Independence had to be written, because they were not self-evident. I mean, while this is being written, many still embrace slavery. Both Jefferson and Franklin had slaves. So these truths are not self-evident. The belief that all humans are created equal and have inalienable rights at its core is a theological belief. There is nothing in the universe that we can see as empirical evidence or rationale to deduce that's where this comes from. If we're not rooting this in a good creator, what we find in nature is survival of the fittest. And this is difficult for us because we want to believe that human rights are simply universal accepted norms and truth, but nature and history say otherwise. These truths are not self-evident. They are rooted in Christian belief. Noah Harani puts it like this. He says there's no such thing as rights in biology. Human rights have no foundation if they're not grounded in Christian anthropology. And so what we find is that Jefferson had it right the first time. Equality and human rights are sacred truths, not self-evident.